topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Language of Healing, brought to you by Talk4 TV, W4CY Radio. You can join us live every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, and can always refer back to YouTube, iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, Facebook to catch the replays of our previous episodes. And I'm Nicole, I'm your host, and looking forward to today's conversation around the magic of kindness. And what inspired me to bring this topic to light this week was just noticing in my experience throughout the week in being kind to myself. I was feeling a little bit tired and not quite overwhelmed, but there's a lot of stuff going on and busy, and there's so many moving parts that go on in a week. And Sunday I just really felt like I'm just gonna take this day off, take a couple days off, and just show some kindness and compassion to myself in honoring my body needing to rest, maybe my mind needing to rest, and just I spent some time cleaning, and that always, to me, lifts my spirits in a way. Maybe I'm a little weird. I love cleaning, but I don't think I'm alone in that, because there's this, that reflection of our external environment with our internal environment. And when things are a bit cluttered, or, I have a pile of dishes, I feel like that impacts my ability to focus and really rest and rejuvenate. So I just noticed this week that I took a conscious choice to really be kind to myself and take some time off and not go into the story of you should be doing this, you should be doing that. What about all these other things going on that you're not paying attention to? It's like, nope. What I'm paying attention to is me, my body. I'm checking in, and I'm honoring that. And it felt really good. And, and I just wanted to share a little bit about that with you today, because whatever we're going through, is we're not going through it alone. And so if you're also feeling like, maybe just needing to honor yourself a little bit, take that extra time, take the pause, step back, take a little break. Like, this is actually very beneficial for us, for our physical health, our mental health. And and there's so much to explore around kindness. We have Rachel popping in here. I always feel relieved after I clean, and the rest is better if the cleaning is done. Yeah, totally, right? You're able to rest a lot easier. And then when you're rested, you're starting with a fresh, clean slate. It's like going on holiday, and when you just like to clean up and tidy up, and then when you come home, it's like, it's already good, right? And and I was feeling that spring cleaning vibe. I know it's not quite springtime yet, but we are transitioning into that season, and so this is a time for a fresh start, fresh slate. We're coming out of the winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. The Southern Hemisphere is a little bit different, but we're still in that seasonal transition. So we're still moving into this new energy, and seasonal transitions can be difficult in the sense that if we're not really grounded and anchored and, in the present, I guess, we can be moving on really unshaky ground. So we can be swept off our feet or taken off our path with all the various distractions around there. So yeah, I think taking the time to clean and organize and honor yourself is a really beneficial thing when we're moving forward. You know, we've talked about in the past before around the idea of um, coming back into center before moving. And this is like a martial arts, technique where, and I mean, I played sports growing up. And so this was always relatable. You have to like get in a position where you have options, right? Like if you're standing um, strong within your body, not easily tipped over, if someone came and just gave you a little nudge, like, would you fall over or would you stand strong in that? And I think that's the best position to move forward into the next seasons or the next chapters or even just like the next step in our life, is to really come back into that center. So when we move somewhere, okay, reground, recenter. Now I can move in any direction I want. But if you're standing on one foot, you're a bit limited in where you can move from there. So that grounding, recentering piece is critical to success. Let's just say that. So, yeah, and the kindness piece. I mean, there is a theme in general right now going on with kindness. We've come through the holidays, and now February, we're a little bit farther away from that and getting more into the groove of the new year. There was, the New Year's January 1st, the New Year February 1st, with the Lunar New Year, and then we've just come through a full moon on the 16th. It was the full snowy moon, and we got so much snow here in Calgary, and I was so excited. It was just like the perfect fluffy snow dump. That was awesome for the snowy full moon. So, but yeah, like lots of things are coming up with that. Like, full moons, they're illuminated. They shed light on things. And so, yeah, lots of stuff coming up. And it's like, how can we be kind to ourselves? How can we be kind to others? How can we be kind to our environment? And I wanted to look at this and just go through a practice with you around that, because why not? Right? What's it going to hurt? It's actually only going to make us better and help support us in communicating with others, communicating with ourselves, getting more clarity around what it is that we really want. What do we want to be moving toward? Like also a concept that we've talked a lot about in regards to emotional wisdom training, and is seeing how, or recognizing the difference between moving towards something or moving away from something. And so the moving towards something is more of coming from a place of that piece around awareness of the present, acceptance of the past, and then awakening to the future. And the moving away from piece is more of that resistance, right? It's like, I don't want that, so I'm just going to turn away and not look at that. But there's still something triggering about it, right? So the moving towards something is a more positive, accepting state, and creates more room and space and flexibility to choose. It's just easier on your mind, right? Like less conflict. It's more an empowered position when you're moving toward something, because you know what you want, and then you know how to ask for it. You know how to show up, keep your word, and expressing a natural attitude of gratitude along the way does go a long way, even if you don't get what you want, right? So the practice of kindness. So an emotional wisdom training is a neuro-linguistic based program. And so with neuro-linguistic programming, we're always looking at the language, right? It's like the words that we use and choose, and the words can have many, many meanings. They mean something different to all of us. So with me, let's just check in now and just opening our hearts and our minds and our bodies to receiving some insight, clarity, and we'll go through some practices that you can take with you as well through this. So first step, let's, travel a little bit into the awareness piece. So awareness of kindness. And just, I want you to bring to mind, what does kindness mean to you? When you think of kindness, what does that mean to you? And when I think of kindness, well, I feel actually like kindness is a very open, spacious arena. I think it allows, it's like a neutralizing position. It's not neutral. There's nothing not happening there, but I feel like it's calming. Maybe that's the better word for it. Kindness is this calm, relaxed, assertive position, which is respectful, and ultimately kindness helps support others and yourself. Kindness could be, a very simple thing. We can show kindness to others in, holding the door for somebody, letting someone in traffic, right? Instead of, speeding up to not let them in. It's like that act of kindness is like, okay, just, and what happens when we see traffic? It's like the one by one, right? When traffic's merging, it actually flows quite smooth when we're merging together, right? Instead of, 4 cars go, to not let this one guy in, and then everyone stops, and, you get what I mean, I think. So, and I'm sure we've all experienced that traffic, the road incidents where people aren't so kind, right? And it's just amazing how we can go into that spin cycle. So we're just practicing recognizing some of that going on in the outside world and within us. So yes, today we're talking about kindness with ourselves, with others, and kindness with our environment. So firstly, so just checking in again here. So we're thinking about kindness. We've thought about what that means. And now I want you to just reground. So recenter yourself. And recentering yourself is an easy thing to do. It really just starts with awareness again. So feeling, I like to go take my attention deep, like let it actually sink down into my body, into my sit bones, into my pelvis. I'm sitting right now, so I can feel that anchor of my hips, and then I feel the anchor of my feet, and then I feel my legs, how they're connected, and with that solid foundation, my spine, just let your spine be easy and straight. Maybe a nice easy breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and feel that elongation that happens in the spine. And even more as you tuck your chin, just breathing. And this is the time and space where we can honor ourselves for being here, for being present, listening in, listening to ourselves, listening to others, listening to this podcast. We're practicing our listening skills here. And in this state, just closing your eyes, because I want you to remember or bring to mind the last time you were late for something, or the last time you failed at something. And just notice what your mind says to you. Just notice what your mind says. Notice what your body does in that moment. And maybe, perhaps writing it down if something comes to you through that. And so just notice what the mind is saying is unkind. we're becoming aware of how we're unkind to ourselves. And we can be hard on ourselves when we're late for something, or when we failed at something. And it's not just in that moment. It brings with it all of the past experiences. Like suddenly you're thinking of this moment where you were late and hard on yourself, and then you're triggered to remember all of the other times, like, oh, last week I did that too. Oh my gosh, and what about when I did that 10 years ago? Oh, like, how bad is that? And then enter in all of the beliefs around that. So these are just stories. We're just paying attention here, not getting into it. We're just observing the stories that we tell ourselves when we're being unkind to ourselves. So just noticing and writing it down if you feel inspired to do that. Because sometimes seeing it from that outside perspective, right? Like when you write it down, you actually get to read it and see it, and you've written it down, and so it's moving through you, and it's getting out of your head, out, materializing it. And then you can really see, okay, is that supporting me? Is that belief supporting me? And yeah, I mean, I totally get it. Because, that the kindness, I think that okay, I can't speak for everybody, right? But I know that it will resonate with some of us, especially the ones that are caregivers or the nurturers of the family, that take care of everyone first and leave their needs and wants, just under the radar, like they're not as important, right? So we'll take care of others and make sure that all their needs are met before ours. And then where does that leave us? So even if that's something that comes to mind, what are the thoughts? Like, oh, I support everyone else and I don't get it myself, or I'm not good enough, or I'm too much, need to tone it down. So just noticing some of those connections, and the that martyr kind of, I don't know if that's a feeling, or but being the martyrs, like doing everything yourself, not really allowing like the help, but then resenting not having help. So yes, where does kindness play into that? And how could kindness make a difference? Like, what difference could being a little bit more kind to yourself make in a situation like that? So yeah, in that moment, like, what could you say to yourself instead? So in that moment, say you're late for something, you're feeling kind of anxious, and maybe there's a little bit of guilt with that, or something that you failed at. I should have done better, could do better. What is something that you could say to yourself instead? So just sit with that and let that come into your space. What might you say to someone else that was being unkind to themselves? Maybe that helps open the doors to see and reflect on how we interact with others, being kind with others, and following that advice for ourselves, because we have many learning levels, right? We're all at different stages in life and we could be a master at one thing, but a real beginner at another thing. Like we're always learning and growing, and we're all at different parts of that, right? So if I'm beginning to drive, and I'm just learning how to put, what kind of pressure to put on the gas pedal, the brake. I'm familiarizing myself with the size of the vehicle, with the speed of the flow of traffic. That's a very beginner's mindset, right? Like, gosh, I think I ran over, I don't know, it's so bad. I learned to drive on like a manual, stick shift, and just like I would stall all the time. It was so embarrassing, right? You'd be out on the road, and so you can have this appreciation for the beginner's mind, right? And the beginning of something. And now at this point, I would consider myself a master at driving. I do it all the time. I'm very good at it. And it's like second nature to me. Those times when you just get in your car and you drive and you almost forget the trip. It's like, whoa, how am I here already? Right? Like that's a very masterful place where you're you're totally competent. Like you could do it with your eyes closed. I wouldn't recommend that, obviously, driving, right? But you get what I mean. There's all sorts of crafts or writing, or like there's so many skills out there that we have these learning levels, right? So just recognizing that. So if you do encounter that new beginner driver, maybe that kindness, because you don't know where they're at. All you know is like where you're at, and having awareness of the present. You can really actually choose to respond versus react to the emotions that are coming up around that, right? So kindness just creates a bit more space for people and ourselves to be in that learning level and doing the best that we can with the information that we currently have. Yeah, and so just before this, if you're tuning into W4CY Radio on a regular basis, you'll know of the Emotional Wisdom Training podcast. And Kate Michaels and I just had a conversation on that show just before here. And we were also talking about kindness and compassion, and talking about what those words mean to us, right? Like kindness, and what does compassion mean? Kindness, we went into a little bit about that connection with I was thinking of the German root word for children, it's Kinder, or the kindred spirits Kate was sharing, so what is that? There's this childlike quality that is curious and learning and growing, and just really being open to they don't know. You don't know what kindness means. You don't know what these words mean when you're young. So you're constantly gathering the evidence to support some belief around it, right? Or to understand what that means. And so when we hear it many, many, many times, and then we're experiencing it, all of that gets stored away in our unconscious, our conscious, subconscious, unconscious realms. And so we're always pulling from these old files. And so we have lots and lots of experience with some of this stuff. But what if we looked at it from a fresh set of eyes, from a childlike perspective, where, they're kind of like the beginning phases, right? What more can maybe you gather around that? Because maybe the belief that you formed around that before supported you then. Does it support you now? And of course, you can work with a specialist who's trained in some of this stuff, like myself or anyone at the Emotional Wisdom Training Institute, or speaking to someone who knows how to shed light on some of those blind spots that we have. Because there's lots of really valuable information that you can get from that. So if you find, that you could use some more kindness, I think it's just a good place to start, is looking at the stories we've told ourselves about kindness in the past, and compassion. And I really liked the connection with compassion is, the root. Of course, with neurolinguistic programming, we're looking at the words and what they mean. And I love looking at the etymology of words, like where did they come from? What is the root meaning? And I love studying Latin, for that. Of course, lots of medical terminology is based on Latin. And there's these like key root words. And I don't know, it just fascinates me. I mean, hence why the language of healing. I think I love the languages, and because they can mean so many things to so many people, right? But there is that, where did the root come from? And we're all about going to the root. In emotional wisdom training, it's like going to the root. When was that belief formed? When was the first time you heard that? When was the first time that you believed that or decided that? In Chinese medicine, we're always, the idea is to go to the root cause of it. So instead of treating the symptoms or the branches, we're going to the root, and then aligning the root or correcting the root. I don't even know if I would say correcting. It's the idea of balancing or nurturing it. So then the healthy root system will just naturally have, healthy branches and healthy foliage and beautiful blossoms, amazing fruit, and nuts, right? So when we can go more into the root, this is where the lasting change really comes in. Good. Kindness. I think we can show kindness to ourselves too, in being okay with where we're at, and realizing that this is learning levels, and every day is a practice. Like I love this aspect of life, that every day we do get to have another chance, right? We get to try again. We get to practice something that we've learned. We get to incorporate it, embody it, and just noticing what difference that can make. It's like comparing the stagnant lake that's filled with mosquitoes and I don't know, that's what I think. The boggy, not moving, stagnant body of water versus like the free flowing river. And so I would prefer to choose to be in that flowing state instead of like the stagnant. So we can always grow and evolve, and every day we can create something new, right? Because we are always moving and transitioning, and there's the rhythms of life, right? So not to get too stuck in it, but at any given time, there are so many things like firing in our brain and our body. We have, our brain, our heart, our gut. They all have something to say, and they're all, fighting for attention. And so we notice then that we can get into like those spin cycles, and the spin cycles, like going back to the beginning when we were looking at, the last time we were unkind, becoming aware of the last time we were unkind to ourselves. And you notice how that brings up things from the past, right? Or worry about the future. And that's a lot of information happening, at one time. There's a lot more going on than we even know. And so it's amazing that our heads don't explode, right? Yeah. Okay. So coming back into this practice of kindness. And so we looked at ourselves and, becoming aware of maybe those times that we're unkind to ourselves, and noticing what our mind says about that. Yes. So we saw how that can play out. And then we looked at what is something that you could say to yourself instead. What might be something more supportive? And so bringing now to mind, thinking about others, and bring to mind the last time you experienced unkindness, not being kind to others. Maybe it was you, or you just noticed unkindness towards others. I'm just going to observe that, just watching it like a movie, not getting into it, just observing. from a neutral, wise, outside, third person perspective, wise guru stance. Okay, and now bring to mind kindness and what difference kindness would make there. So what might have been said instead? What might have been done instead? And what do you notice about that? What do you notice about that? And again, you can write that down. And, what comes to mind now in relation to kindness? How or what could you do to be kind to others? So, that could be holding the door open for somebody, letting someone in traffic, could be writing a note, a thinking of you note, reaching out. Oh yeah, what I was remembering about the conversation with Kate that we just had, which you'll have to go back and listen to, because Kate Michaels is full of wisdom and awesome conversations. And I'm always very happy to be there with her. I learned so much from her, and it's a pleasure to share it, really, with you all, because I think that it really just truly makes a difference in how we're seeing and being in the world, and really helping us align with getting more of what we want. Because I struggled with this for a very long time, of not even knowing what I wanted. And so without that direction or that compass, you're just kind of like, I felt like I was just floating around a little bit, And so, but I realized that wasn't really being kind to myself to do that. Sure, it might benefit some others, if I'm focusing on taking care of others, but there's that kindness piece that of needing to honor myself, and then noticing actually how that supports others even more. So, but the piece with compassion, I love this, that, when you take the two words together, or like the two parts, come and then passion. And I don't know if this really is true, but, think of all the other words that have come with it, like communication, even the commute, right? Like the driving is the commute. And so connecting, it's like communicating with others about what we're passionate about what we're dedicated to, and yeah, and how we can, and I mean, yeah, how do we communicate? Is it kind? Is it thoughtful? Is it caring? And we're just running off of how we're used to operating. Like, okay, I've always gotten what I want when I'm really loud and slam doors. Like, I get what I want when I'm loud and obnoxious. Maybe there's like a program that we learned when we were a child to get attention that way. Is that the most supportive way to do it? Is there another way to do it? Possibly. What kind of things, a question here, what kind of things can block us from allowing ourselves to open, to be kind with ourselves, to be more aware of our own wants and needs? What kind of things can block us? Oh, well, I mean, what comes to mind first is like the subconscious ego, right? It's, yeah. Let's see that question again, Roxy. Can we put that up there? What kind of things can block us from allowing ourselves to open, to be kind with ourselves? Yeah, this is where, we're just going to have to firstly be aware of maybe the stories that are attached with that. Like when you bring the moment back to you around a time that you were unkind to yourself, and what did you notice that your mind was saying to yourself then? So you've written those down, those thoughts that came to mind that were playing in your head, and you probably know them very intimately. I'm going to just assume that those thoughts come up often, right? And maybe in many different situations. So these are the beliefs that we've formed. So the first step is really becoming aware of those stories that we're telling ourselves. And this is where, again, it's nice to have like the support of a mentor or a coach that can help, walk beside you while you're exploring some of this stuff, because we do have this subconscious block, right? It's like that's the survival mechanism, right? The fight, flight, or freeze. And so if you've just totally blocked it out, you do have access to all of that information. And I think the first step really, because it can be, you don't have to unravel and unwind it all immediately now. I think that just cracking it open a little bit to question, oh, isn't that interesting? Or just aware, like, oh, isn't that interesting that that's what I say to myself? I wonder, when that formed. I wonder when the first time I heard that was. I wonder when, like, what, when that supported me. And just by questioning it. So it's not like the total drastic change, but these are the small seeds that we're planting that we're open to receiving more information. And when we're in that state, that in itself is that has its own magnetic quality, right? So like that common saying of what you focus on, the more you get. So if your attention is now on receiving more clarity and insight as to what those programs are doing, what they're there for, because they have a purpose, right? Like the conscious body, subconscious mind, the unconscious heart, they're they just want to be, they're resourceful and creative, and it's all in an attempt to keep you like safe and supported and secure, right? So they think that they're doing a good job. So even just talking to that part of yourself, like, thank you for being there. Okay, I'm not good enough. All right. Great. Thank you for being there and having supported me before. I acknowledge that you were there, you were put there in place to support me. And now that I'm grown up, and now that I'm here right now, and I'm aware of what's going on, I want da da da. So the shifting is more on like, okay, now I want to be more kind to myself. I want more kindness. And so that's the first step, is really like unwinding some of that. And I think that the more you do that and just stay open and curious to it, the more things will come up, and this is where you need to now, like, trusting in the intuition is hearing and listening to those messages, because it might pop up in your mind. It might pop up in a dream, and so then there's the practice of the kindness and the compassion piece with yourself, because it's not about being hard on yourself. Like, oh, I've done this for years. Oh, I'm so stupid. How could I have done that for years? Like, look at how I've sabotaged myself all this time. It's not about that. It's about, oh, you can feel like, if just imagine, even if it was somebody else, and would you be hard on them the same way you're hard on yourself? Yeah. So maybe some food for thought, right? I hope that helps clear it up, or helps open the door for more clarity around that, because this is what, like, the practice of life is. We have the ability every day to work with some of this. And I think that the awareness is key. Like, when you recognize that program coming back again, you can say, whoa, hey, I see you. I know where this is going. We've been here before. But today I want kindness. Today I want to be kind with myself. I want to be kind with others. I want to be kind with the environment. And so it's that moment that you're catching yourself that is going to have the ripple, right? And then more information. Another comment, my blockage is that I am busy thinking about all that needs done, and I overlook myself and realize I could have been more kind to myself. Yeah, I like spending more time in the bath or spend time eating and enjoying it. Yeah. Yeah, right. I know. I totally get that too. Even if I take some time off, like I was saying, it's like, oh, but I should be doing all these things. And um what I started doing, actually, um I would always tend to these things first, like before getting myself ready for the day. This is a very small example, but it's like before I get into anything, like I get dressed, I get ready as if I was like, okay, if I had to walk out the door right now, like I'm ready. And it's amazing how much more productive I've been with that. Um, so I don't know, it's like even if you took a little time for the bath, before getting into all the things, um, because you're taking care of your soil, right? Like your internal center point. And I think that you're just going to be more productive and more supportive to yourself and others when you're coming from a solid position. So it's a practice. Like I said, like this isn't going to be perfected. There's the learning levels, and it's just starting to be open to it, because if you never really thought about it before, then thinking about it is a good place to start. And yeah, I mean, it's like, but there's the the compassion piece might come in then, because if you're dedicated to being kind to yourself, and if that looks like taking the bath or enjoying a meal, taking time to like sit and prepare and then consume the meal in in um in a nice environment, then so you've dedicated yourself to that. Like that's what you want, right? And and then you can communicate it. So when you have clarity around what you want, you know how to ask for it. That makes a huge difference, because maybe then in your family dynamics, it's like, communicating that that's what you want, and then communicating it does create the space for it to exist. It's like, and time is such a relative thing, right? I tell myself this all the time, like, I don't have time for that. I'm rushed. I feel busy. I feel like I'm overwhelmed with a lot of tasks. But it's also amazing. Then I'm amazed at how quickly I can get something done when I just sit down and do it. So I don't know if that helps or supports you, but I think just starting small, it's like really simple, and even being kind to yourself could be like, okay, I noticed that I didn't do that today, what I really wanted, you know? And so then imagining, what would you say to someone else that shared that thought with you? It's like, well, okay, like tomorrow is another day. It's more practice time tomorrow. And, or, maybe make it like, I don't know, in your schedule it. And I know these are all things that maybe we've heard before, right? Like just put it in your schedule, make time for it. But when it comes to that practical, like in the moment, yeah, it's easier said than done, right? Because we have all these parts of us from the past that are coming up with, our old programs. I think that's it. You're just recognizing that this is a program. I see you. We've been here before. Here we go again. Okay, let's dance. Let's dance, right? Yeah, and I think that's what stops us. That's what blocks us, right? Generally, what stops us, what holds you back is yourself more. And that's okay. It's okay. It has served you before. And We're just opening up to the possibility of what might serve me now. Might that be better? It is a different ball game. And when you expect someone to consider that compassion with us, yes, totally. It changes everything, right? Like communicating what you need and what you want, because I mean, realistically, how can we, how can we expect to be, how do I want to put that? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, of course, if we want longevity and good life and like long and healthy life, what matters is right now, what we're doing right now. And so like, it's like a savings account or something, right? Like it compounds on itself. So even if it's like $2 that you put away, I mean, it's still $2, right? Like, and if you do that over years and years and years, it compounds. So I think taking care of ourselves and being kind with ourselves is just that. It can be something really simple. And sometimes being kind is just something that you recognize. Like it's not always witnessed by everybody, right? But kindness is good for your mental health, right? It's good for your physical health. And just in the way that you're allowing it's like the acceptance. You're allowing that piece to just happen, knowing that you can choose something different next time, right? So instead of the guilt and the shame of what you didn't do, what you should have done, like, okay, it's like, thank you for the awareness. Like, thank you for seeing that, because I've been running that program for many, many years and I've never looked at it like this, right? So there, and that's okay, because I can now see it differently, or just have a little bit more clarity around it. And then I can create that new boundary, that new home that supports me in getting more of it. So it's staying focused on that intention of what you want. And then how do we look at it, in our environment? So like in what ways can you be more kind to the environment? And maybe that's just appreciating the sky. Like here in Calgary, we have such a big sky, and the colors are, they change like morning and night. And I just always appreciate the sky, appreciating the trees, the mountains. You can talk to a tree. It's like, wow, look how big you are. Look how like you smell nice, and just appreciating nature and our environment. And this is also supporting us. So when we're supporting ourselves with kindness towards each other and others, and kindness towards our environment, the more we put that out, just being open to receiving more kindness and asking for it, and communicating with others to be on that mission together. Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that, pop it in any comments or questions in the chat. Like, what did you notice about kindness? What have you noticed about kindness lately? Kindness to yourself, kindness to others, kindness in your environment. What are you doing to be kind? How does that play out in your life? And what might you do to create more of it in your life? So I hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, at the Language of Healing. Check us out. Check out the old podcasts, and always love to hear from you about things that might be of interest to you, what's coming up for you. I think the pandemic opened up more communication to create kindness. Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Everything has been highlighted and amplified. And so, yeah, when we notice these triggers coming up, we have a choice. And again, back to every day is a practice. So don't get too hung up on, the past. And if you're going to use the past, like use it to support you. Like collect the more information around it. What else was going on then? Like, what do I notice about that? What was my mind saying? What were my thoughts? What was I feeling? And the more that we can gather that information, use it productively, we're training our intuition, we're getting more clear on our intentions, what we want, what we don't want. And then we're just stepping into more and more of it every day, making it the practice. And and this is how we decipher the languages, language of healing. And the language of others is being open and curious, listening to what does that mean to someone else. That's a big thing to consider too. When you're considering others, what might that mean for them? And maybe you're not coming from the same place, right? But when you communicate it, you have a more understanding and can make more creative, resourceful, wise choices that will leave us, them, and our environment in a much better balanced place. So coming back to center, reground yourself, breathe. It's going to be okay. Being kind. Kindness is a gift that anyone can afford. So be kind. And what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you for the rest of your life?
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.